Welcome to Microsoft Access Beginner Level 2, brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I am your instructor, Richard Rost. This is Level 2 of my Beginner's Guide to Microsoft Access Database Design. This class follows Access Beginner Level 1, which I strongly recommend you watch first before continuing with this class. Access Beginner Level 1 is absolutely free. You can find it on my website right there. It's also on my YouTube channel. It's about 4 hours long and covers all the basics and the fundamentals that you should know before watching today's class. As I always say, my lessons are meant to be followed one after the other, so please don't skip levels. This class is recorded with Access 365, roughly equivalent to Microsoft Access 2019. However, if you're using Access 2016, you should be okay as well. If you are using an older version of Access, come to my website and get the version that is for you. My classes are broken up into beginner, expert, advanced, and developer. This is level 2 of the beginner series. I recommend you sit back, relax, watch each video once through, pay attention to the details, then watch the video again, build the database with me. Don't just grab the copies off my website, which you can download them, but it's better if you build them yourselves. All right, and keep an open mind. Watch the video again if you have to. All right, this stuff isn't that hard to learn. That light bulb will go off. You will get it, trust me. Avoid building serious projects until you get to at least expert level 2, because you're going to learn a lot of stuff between now and then. All right, build the class database, build a hobby database if you collect baseball cards or whatever. All right, do it for fun. Use Access for fun. You'll get there. Okay, let's take a look at exactly what we're going to cover in today's class. In Lesson 1, we're going to get started for the day by downloading the sample database from my website that we built in Access Beginner 1. We'll talk about a security warning that you get if you run an unfamiliar database. We'll show you how to set up a trusted location on your computer or on your network so you can put databases in there and not have to deal with that security warning. I'll show you how to set up a desktop shortcut to your database, and we'll go over a quick review of what we covered in Level 1. In Lesson 2, we'll be working with form design. We're going to rebuild the customer form that we started in Access Level 1. We'll learn how to add, move, and resize controls, align and size objects, and we'll change the foreground and background colors. In Lesson 3, we're going to be continuing with form design. We'll be focusing on more form formatting. I'll show you how to size objects to the grid. We'll talk about grid lines versus grid dots. I get this email all the time from people. Some people see the grid lines, some people see the grid dots, and I'll show you how to switch between them. And then we'll do a lot more with working with colors and with themes. In Lesson 4, we're going to get a brief introduction to relationships in our database. We'll learn why we want to use relationships, the different types of relationships, the difference between primary and foreign keys. We'll set up an appointment table, learn about default values, and the date and now functions. In Lesson 5, we're going to build an appointment form, very similar to the customer form that we built in the last class. We'll make a customer combo box using the combo box wizard, so we can pick a customer from a drop-down list of customers for the appointment. Then we'll learn about the command button wizard, so we can make a button to open up the form and show just appointments for the customer that we're on. So lots of cool stuff in Lesson 5. In Lesson 1, we're going to get started for the day by downloading the sample database from my website that we built in Access Beginner 1. We'll talk about a security warning that you get if you run an unfamiliar database. We'll show you how to set up a trusted location on your computer or on your network so you can put databases in there and not have to deal with that security warning. I'll show you how to set up a desktop shortcut to your database, and we'll go over a quick review of what we covered in Level 1. Let's start out today by downloading the sample database that we built in the last class, Access Beginner 1. If you've built it along with me, following along with the videos in Beginner 1, great. You can use your database copy if you want to. If not, you can go grab mine from my website. Here's the link down here. If you're watching on my website right now, just go down and look in the database files section. Now, the page isn't going to look like this because Access Beginner 2 isn't finished yet. I just started it, but look for the Database from Beginner 1 link and download that. Okay, here I am right there, Database from Beginner 1. Let's click on that. That should download. There we go. Let's open up our Downloads folder. Now, one thing that I want to stress is don't try to run an Access database from inside the zip file. A zip file is basically where you can take a whole bunch of other files and compress them, and it makes them one file so you can put online, easier to download, smaller and faster, right? But you don't want to run your Access databases from inside here. Windows makes it easy because you can just double click on it, and then you can open up that file. Don't do that. All right, we're going to copy this file somewhere else and then work out of that folder. So I'm going to take this database, I'm going to click and drag and drop it here just on my desktop. And there it is, the b1database.accdb. Now, if I try to open this database file right now, you're going to get this active content has been disabled. Click for more details. What is that? Well, essentially, it's possible for Access databases to have Visual Basic programming and other kinds of stuff like that inside of them. So to make sure that your computer is safe, Access will disable any active content, macros, some macros, Visual Basic programming, events, things of that nature. So always make sure you're getting your databases from a trusted source before you click on the Enable Content button. And there I'll click on Enable Content, and now my database is fully functional. Now, I don't have any macros or VB code in this database right now, but if I had, now they would be able to run. Now, if you don't want to have to go through that every time you transfer a database, whether you're working on a database for someone else or someone else is sending it to you, you can set up trusted folders on your computer, which is what I recommend. And you can find those under File and then Options, and then go to Trust Center right there, Trust Center Settings, and then go to Trusted Locations. All right, here's a list of the trusted locations on this computer. Now here you can see I've got a G drive, that's my Google Drive, I use that all the time. And I don't recommend you share databases over a Google Drive. That's a topic for a whole different video. If you're curious about that, I'll put a link to my video in the link section down below. But don't run your Access databases over a shared drive like Google Drive or OneDrive or any of those. You can use them just by yourself there, that's fine, but don't share them with other people that way. Now I've got a server on my network. I have my database set up to be shared amongst multiple people, even though I'm the only people here. I got a couple different computers running the same database. And if you check this box down here, it'll allow trusted locations on your network. It says not recommended. Not recommended unless you know what you're doing. Okay, I know what I'm doing. This is a shared server folder. And this here is where the Access wizards are. That comes as a default trusted location. So I'm going to add a new location. Browse to where you want to have your trusted folder. I'm going to hit Browse, go to my desktop, and then hit OK. All right, there's my desktop folder. Subfolders of this domain are also trusted. That's fine. If you make subfolders, you want to put the database below that. We're going to be working with different database files over the course of this course. So definitely check that on. Hit OK. And now you'll see it's been added right there to your list of trusted locations. Now you can put database files in there. Any database that's running out of that folder or its subfolders, you'll no longer get those security warnings for. Okay, so if you're setting up a database for other people to use, you'll have to go to each of their workstations and set up your trusted folder. Okay, there's no way around that intentionally. Microsoft didn't want to make that easy to do. All right, but you only have to do it once. All right, hit OK, and there we go. Now make sure that that trusted folder is somewhere that you back up regularly. All right, and again, I've got a whole different video on backing up your database. All right, we'll talk about it in a future class in this course, but I also have some extra bonus videos on that too. I'll put links down in the link section below. It's nice that I have all these videos already made for you guys, because one of the biggest complaints I got the first time I did this course was I'll always say, well, we'll talk about that in a future class. And then people had to wait for it, but now it's already there. Okay, so let's close this database down, and I'm going to also close my downloads folder. And let's make a folder on our desktop to put this into. Now, if you have a folder on your server somewhere, you want to put it there, that's fine. Make that your trusted folder. I'm just going to drop a folder on my desktop, new folder. We'll call this Access Beginner Database for the course, right? And then I'll move this guy into that folder. There we go. Now, I'd like to have a handy-dandy shortcut on my desktop. So, now that the database is tucked safely away in its folder, I'm going to right-click and drag and drop it back here on the desktop and go Create Shortcut. And there we go. Now I got a shortcut to my database. And I'll just put in here DB Shortcut. All right? I like to work with my shortcuts. Okay, so I'm going to take this folder and just tuck it away over here off to the side. There's my database shortcut. Oh, get over there. Okay, let's open it back up again. Now, keep in mind with the shortcut, it's still running out of that folder. The database file is in that Access Beginner Databases folder. Just a shortcut is on the desktop. If you don't know shortcuts, I cover that in my Windows beginner classes. So real quick review what we covered in Beginner 1. If you didn't watch the whole 4-hour plus video, we made a customer table. Right, here's our customer table. Remember, tables store all of our data. All the data in the database is stored in tables. All right, queries are just a way of looking at that data. Forms are for interfacing with that data on the screen, and reports are for printing out. But all the data is actually stored in that table. All right, we can go to Design View, right-click here. Now, you'll see some extra buttons up top here on my Quick Launch toolbar, and I'll teach you how to do these in a future video. Again, I've got other videos I can point you to right now if you want to learn how to do this immediately. I'll put a link to the Quick Launch toolbar down in the links section, but we will cover this very soon. All right, but I've got my design, all the buttons that I use on a regular basis I got right there. There's Design View. Okay, Customer ID is our auto number. Remember, almost every table is going to start with an auto number, starts at 1 and counts up, and that number is for access, not you. That's one of the #1 questions I get asked all the time. Well, I'm missing a couple auto numbers. Nope, those aren't for you. Don't worry about what they are. Those are for access. All right, first name, last name, company name, all these are short text fields. We did make a website hyperlink field. I don't particularly care for hyperlinks, but we'll work with them anyways. Email, phone, all this stuff, okay? Lots of different data types in there. We made a couple queries. There's our customer active queue, right? That just is active, is true. Let's go in here, Design View. And where is it? All the way over here. We learn how to do query criteria. Say that 10 times fast, right? Query criteria. Customers from New York, customers from Pennsylvania. We've got a customer form. Real simple one. We're going to do more with this today. We're going to spend a lot of time on form design. All kinds of cool tricks. And a few different reports in here like our mailing labels. Okay. So that's what we built so far. So you don't have to download my database if you don't want to. If you want to use yours or use another different database you've got built, that's fine. As long as it's got roughly all the same stuff. Okay. Okay, so in the next lesson, we're going to get more into form design. In Lesson 2, we'll be working with form design. We're going to rebuild the customer form that we started in Access Level 1. We'll learn how to add, move, and resize controls, align and size objects, and we'll change the foreground and background colors. Back in Level 1, we built this real simple customer form. Okay, now building user-friendly customer forms is really more of an art than a science. Okay, I've been working with Access for almost 30 years now, and so I've spent hundreds of hours playing with forms and form design and getting everything to look just right. So don't be frustrated if your form doesn't look like you want it to look like the first time through. Okay? Now, if you're building your database just for your own use, then that's great. You can make it look however you want to. If you're building it for other people, remember you want to make your forms nice and easy to follow so that if they're not computer experts, they can still figure out what's going on. Your end users are going to interface with your database only using your forms and reports. You don't want your end users playing around inside your tables and your queries. And later on, I'll show you how to hide those things. Again, if you want to learn now, I have a video called Simple Security. I'll put it in the link section down below. Go watch that. It's a couple of quick tips and tricks on how to make your database so that your users can't poke around in things they shouldn't be seeing right now. Now, since I believe that practice makes perfect, we're going to delete that customer form. Right-click, delete. Are you sure? Yep. We're going to start over. I'm going to show you some new tricks and tips this time around too. So it's not all wasted time from building it before. Okay. Now I've got my ribbon collapsed up here, as you can see. If I double-click on something like the home on the menu there, you can see it pops back open. To save space, I usually close it. You just double click, it collapses it. And you can just click once if you want to use something temporarily, and then it'll go away. But let's leave it open for class. It's easier to deal with. Let's create, and we'll go over to form design. There's our blank form. Remember, we're going to bind this form to a specific table. You can have either a table or a query as the record source for your form. That's where it's getting its records from. So right there, that little box right there, that's the properties for the form. We're going to double click on that spot. That brings up the property sheet. Okay, right where those ruler bars meet, that little square there. Now come on over here to the property sheet, click on the data tab and find the record source property. That's where this form gets its data from. All right, click in here, drop this little box down, pick the customer table. Now you'll notice right down here where it says filter and order by, we've got it filtered to show customers from New York, and there's an order by, which is a sort. It's going to sort by first name, last name. That's because when we were playing around with our customer table, I showed you how to filter and sort records. That was lesson 8 of level 1. Now, you might not want that in here, so we can just delete them out of here. Delete and delete. Okay. Now, let's save this form real quick. Control S on the keyboard. This will be my customer F, my customer form. And now we can add records to the table. So let's close the property sheet. Let's go to form design. Add existing fields. There's a list of the fields in the customer form. We did a little bit of this last time, remember? Let's grab the customer ID, click and drag, drop it. Don't drop it too close to the margin over there, otherwise it'll squish up that label, right? I'm going to delete that, try again. Click and drag. I like to bring it right about there and drop it. And now you can grab the label if you want to and move it. Right? If you click on something like this, you see the 4-way pointing arrow, you can click and drag. Right? And it'll bring both of them together. If you want to move one independent of the other, remember you got the label over here and the text box over here. These little squares in the upper left corner will let you move them independent of each other. If you want to do something like that. Sometimes you want to put a label above the text box like this. Okay, then you can line it up that way. But in this case, I'm going to grab you and move you over there. In older versions of Access, you used to get a little finger. It'd be a single pointing finger. Okay. Here's a little keyboard trick for you guys. I'm a keyboard guy. I sometimes don't want to have to stop and grab the mouse. So if you click on an object like that and use the arrow keys, it will also move up, down, left, right like that. See? And you can see these little dots in the background. That's called the grid. We're going to talk about the grid in the next lesson. But when you move with just the arrow keys, it moves one whole grid dot at a time. But if you want to nudge it just a tiny bit, hold the control key down, and it will nudge just one pixel at a time. See that? That's kind of neat. Okay. All right, I'm going to move it back up here, though. I like to throw in little keyboard shortcut tricks whenever possible, because I'm a keyboard nut myself. Especially after working with a mouse for 8 hours, my hand starts to, that carpal tunnel's kicking in, right? So let's save our form again. Save often. Control S, save all the time. When you're designing objects, you want to save as much as possible. All right, when you're working with the database, then remember, every record gets saved when you move off of the record. So if you type in a customer's record and you move to someone else, their record gets saved. You don't have to save your data. Okay, but your form design, save that often. Let's switch back over to form view now, and that's what it's going to look like so far. All right, customer ID, and then a 1. And if you move through the records, we got 16 records, but we only got the customer ID on the form right now. All right, let's go back to design view. Again, you can use the view drop-down box over here, go to design view, or I like to right click and go to design view right on the title bar there, or on the, the title bar. All right, let's bring in first name, the next field, click and drag. Remember, we're not going to line it up with the label. We're going to line it up right there under the text box like that. Oh, and I even missed. So, yeah, you know why? Because it's too big, right? There's too much of a gap there. The label's pushing me over. So I'm going to have to slide that over and then maybe move this over. Give me some more room like that. Put first name under it there. Okay, now these labels get all messed up, so I'm going to click on it. Let's resize these labels a little bit. See these little dots around there? Those dots are what you use to resize with. So we can click on that. Dot right there, click and drag. Click and drag this one. That. Right, click and drag that one. Okay, that's how you resize these guys. You can make them bigger this way too if you want to, but that looks kind of dumb. So bring it like that. There's all kinds of shortcut tricks we're going to learn too, so just bear with me. Now again, if you want to bring over multiple fields, you can click on the first one, hold down the Shift key, click on the last one. That'll select all of them. Then let go of the Shift key, click and drag any one of them over here onto the form. Just like that. That brings that whole block over. Okay, and then you can move them up here if you want to, or you can move them all at the same time by just dragging a box around them and then clicking and dragging like that. Okay. You can also add individual ones by using the Control key. So pick one, hit the Control key, hold that down, click, click, maybe that one, click, right? Now I can add these 4 controls and just drag them and put them right there. Okay, I don't want that yet though, so let's hit delete. Go away. Now let's say I want to put last name up here next to first name. Let's delete the label. You can delete a label independent of its text box. Remember, if you delete the text box, they both go away. So if I delete country right here, boom, the label goes away too. Okay, I'll undo that, Control Z, undo. Right? But if I delete the label, the text box still sticks around. Okay, that's because you might want to do this, right? First name, space, last name. Then we'll change our label up here, right? First, comma, last names. All right. Now that label's getting just a little bit too long. Let's move these guys over a little bit more, right? Slide them over, and we're going to take both of these labels. We're going to make them a little bit bigger this way, right? Then we can make them a little smaller. Now see, it's doing them both at the same time. You might want to make these guys align the exact same. So you can select them like this, right-click, and go size to widest. See that? And it sized them both to the widest. There's a whole bunch of little shortcuts on that menu I'm going to teach you over the next couple of lessons. All right, you can select, let's say you got a couple that are out of whack here. Let's say that one's over a little bit like that. You can select all of these guys, just draw a box that touches them, or you can even use the ruler bar up here. Watch this, click and drag. See that? You can use the ruler bars to select too. But now that I've got all these selected, I can right click and I can go align left. That'll line them all up on the left-hand side. See that? Then I can go right-click, size to widest, and there we go. See? Looks a little better. Same thing with these guys here, right? Click, right-click, align left. That lines those all up on the left. See? We'll spend more time with that menu in a bit. All right, so there's first name and last name. Maybe here we'll do customer space ID. Remember, you don't want spaces in your field names, but on your labels, you want that to look nice and human readable. Okay? Company name, we'll slide that up here. And the company names can be pretty wide, so I'll make that wider like that. Same thing with address. All right, address can be pretty wide. We'll do that with the address. All right, city, state, and zip. We'll put city there. I'll do the same thing with state and zip. We'll delete those 2 boxes. Delete. Right? State can go right up next to it like this. Size state. And of course, if you're in a different country and your address is formatted differently, then format yours accordingly, right? Again, Access is like playing with Legos. I can only show you how all the pieces work. You have to put them together however you want. All right, we'll make country nice and there too. All right, maybe put a space in there for company name. And then we'll go city, state, zip, like that. Sometimes I see people put colons in here. If you want the little colons next to them, that's fine too. I used to do that back in the old days, but now I kind of tend away from that. All right, save it. Save often. Let's take a peek. Right click, form view. All right, looking good. Looks better. Let's add a splash of color. Let's go back to design view. Now, customer ID is an auto number, so the user can't change that. So to visibly indicate that that's a field they can't change, I like to make it gray. So I'm going to go to the Format tab up here, go to the Font section right there, that little paint bucket, that's your background color. I like to stick with the standard colors. All right, we'll talk about themes in a future lesson. Again, I'll put a link down below for the themes lesson. But basically, you can set up themes that the user can then change what the theme is, and it changes all the color schemes throughout the whole database. I personally don't like themes. I never use them. I like to set my colors up, and that's what you get. Okay, but I'm going to make this like a dark gray like that, and I'm going to left align it. That way the number is on the left side. Okay, let's save that and see what it looks like. Right click, form view. All right, looking better. Let's add a splash of background color to the form. So what we're going to do is we're going to click here in the details section. Close that field list for now. Let's come back to it in a minute. We're going to go back to the property sheet, which is right there. Okay, the details section, go to format. Here's your back color right there. Now, set the background 1. Again, I like to use the standard colors. Okay, so you can either click on that little guy there or just go back up to format, drop this guy down, and let's pick like a light blue. No, I don't like that one. Let's pick a different one. Let's go with that one. Okay, that looks nice. All right, we got a light blue background here. Let's make these labels black so they're easier to read. I'm going to draw a box that just touches them. Drop this guy down and go to black down here under standard colors. That looks a lot better. All right, save it, save often. And I like to close my forms once in a while too. All right, especially once you get into programming later on. It's best to close your form and reopen it. So let's reopen the customer form. There we go. Got a lot of empty space in here, but we're going to fill it up with some more stuff in just a few minutes. In Lesson 3, we're going to be continuing with form design. We'll be focusing on more form formatting. I'll show you how to size objects to the grid. We'll talk about grid lines versus grid dots. I get this email all the time from people. Some people see the grid lines, some people see the grid dots, and I'll show you how to switch between them. And then we'll do a lot more with working with colors and with themes. Okay, our database is coming along nicely now. Let's go back to design view here. We got some more fields to add, so let's go up to the add existing fields again. The last thing we added was country. Let's add website. This time I'm going to add it by simply double clicking on it. Watch this, double click. It drops it on your form. It kind of just puts it wherever it wants to, so you really don't get any control over where it goes. But that's how you do that. All right, slide this over like this. Okay. Let's bring over email and phone number. Click and drag, drop them right about there. Okay, looks good. Let's slide this up. Email can be bigger. That can be pretty long. Let's drag that over like that. Now, one thing you might notice, if you look at the labels here, you can see how that line is not quite exactly on that dotted grid in the background. And if I zoom in there, you can see it even more clearly. See that? That's one of my pet peeves when it comes to working with objects and axes. Whenever you drag a new object on there, it doesn't always fit on that grid. Now, if I click on this and then resize it, it will drop right on the grid there. See that exactly? Same thing here, like that. And you can select all of these objects and then right-click and then go to size and then to grid. And that will snap all of those objects on the grid exactly. See that? And sometimes people like this look. They like to be able to take these objects and make them right up next to each other like that. See? Oop, undo that. And if you put them all right next to each other, you get this nice little tight block. All right. I don't personally do that myself, but I see a lot of people try to design, especially the reports like that. All right, we'll spend some more time with the grid in a bit. Now, if you don't see grid dots and you see these grid lines, this means that your system is probably set to metric instead of English. So you've got two options. You can either change your system over to English measurement, which I'm sure a lot of you in the metric world don't want to do, or go to your forms properties, go to the All tab. I like to click this button so it goes alphabetical. Come down and find the grid settings, grid X and grid Y. Normally, this is set to 24 dots per inch. All right, but since you're metric, you're getting 24 dots per centimeter, which is a lot smaller. So change this to something like, I don't know, 10. All right, well, maybe go smaller than that. Let's go to maybe 7 or 8. Let's see, how's 8? There we go. And now you'll see the grid dots. The problem is they're too fine, so they don't show up there if you're on metric. All right, because each one of these is a centimeter now instead of an inch. All right, so the default for us in the English world is 24 dots per inch. And I'm going to go switch my system back now to English. And that, by the way, is in your regional settings in your control panel. Just search for measurement systems and you'll find it. So I'm going to switch this back to US and hit apply and then restart my database. And there we go. I'm back to normal. Normal for us here in the US. I know a lot of you are watching this from around the world. Yes, I wish we were on the metric system too, like the rest of y'all. But progress is slow here. I actually have a whole separate video about the grid dots versus line that I put together a few years ago because I get asked this question all the time. So I'll put that in the link section too if you want to go watch that. Okay, so what other fields do we still have here? Let's close this, go back to add existing fields. We got the phone number in there. We got number of employees, discount rate, customer cents, credit limit is active. Let's bring these guys in. Click and drag, drop them right there. Okay, let's slide them up now, highlight them all. Click and drag, get them right there. Nope, nope, see, I always miss them. As long as you don't unselect that block, they'll stay selected right there. I got a brand new mouse, and I'm still not used to it yet. And let's take is active. Now, when we bring is active over, that comes over as a checkbox, a yes or no checkbox. Some people call it a tick box. No, in Access, it's called a checkbox. All right, so we're going to take this checkbox, and we're going to slide it up here. Right there, is active. Put it right on top. There we go. All right, now notes. Notes comes in as a really big block like that. That's because that's a long text field, right? Formerly called a memo field. Nice and big. So I like to put the notes field right up about here. All right, so I'm going to take this label and delete it. See how it comes on over here? Right there, see it? Okay. Click on it. It's on top. Hit delete. We're going to slide the notes field right there. All right, now these other fields over here, we could take these and put them underneath it. So do that, like that. Discount rate over here. Come on. Customer cents and credit limit. Get them all nice and snuggled up there. Okay. Phone number, let's make that bigger. There we go. All right, let's bring these guys down. Let's line them up on the bottom here. Right about there. Okay. And that means the notes field can get bigger. Let's bring that down to about there and slide it over this way. All right, looking good, looking good. Now I got all this empty space. Let's resize the form. Come over here to the right. Grab the right edge of the form there and drag it in. Get rid of all that extra empty space. Same thing down on the bottom. Grab the scroll bar, come down here. We're going to slide this guy up just like that. Get rid of all that empty space. All right, looks good. Save it. Let's close it and reopen it. And beautiful. Looking pretty good so far. Now, I personally don't like the way some fields line up on the right, some fields line up on the left. I hate that. Even in Excel, I like everything lining up on one side. I know accountants like their digits and stuff to be on the right, so all the pennies line up. I just personally don't like that. So I am going to select these 4 cells, go to Format, and here we are right here, align left, right, center, and there's right. I'm going to go left. All right, same thing with these. Make sure all these guys over here align to the left. All right, save it, close it, open it back up again. There we go. Looks better. Got to do some more label fixing, right? Let's come in here. Let's make is active just say active. All right, we got phone, num employee. Let's make this employees. All right, discount space rate, customer space cents, credit limit. Right, or you can make this like, number of employees or whatever you want to do. Labels are just for you. Okay, and again, see, it always bothers me that the labels aren't on the grid. So I like to select everything, right click, size to grid, make everybody snap on those grid dots. We got to change the color. Now, instead of manually changing all these, you can click on them if you want to. Hold down the shift key, click on multiple ones like that. That's fine. Or you can select them in a block like that. And you can go back to format and change the format color right here, the font color. Okay. You can also use the format painter, which is, where'd he go? He's right there. He's grayed out because I don't have anything selected. But let's say I select this country, right, and hit the format painter, and then paste over that guy. See? Copies and pastes the format. And if you want the format painter to stick on, just double click it. Double click. You can go click, click, click. See that? And when you're done, just turn them off. And I use them so much, I put them right up here on my quick launch toolbar. Now, I've got a whole lesson on customizing the ribbon and the quick launch toolbar coming up later on. But if you drop this little box down there right there, you can go to more commands. You can see all the different ones that are on here, like undo and redo. If you want undo on there, put undo on there. I always use the keyboard for undo. Okay? If you want to pick a different one, take undo off, right? You can go to more commands. Here's all the different commands, right? You want cut and copy on there, just pick them, hit add, and it brings them right over here. Okay? Again, I use the keyboard for stuff like that. So I'll hit OK. All right, we're going to learn all about the quick launch toolbar in an upcoming lesson. For those of you that can't wait, I cover it in Access Expert Level 5, so we will be getting to it. I'll put a link down in the link section if you want to go watch it right now. Now, one thing that I like to do with notes boxes, I like to make them look like that little yellow sticky paper, right, that you stick all over people's desks and monitors and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the properties for this guy. And let's find the special effect property. And let's make that raised. There's raised, sunken, etched, shadowed. All right, let's go with raised and see what raised looks like. Okay, I like that. Actually, let's go with shadowed. Let's go with shadowed. Yeah, shadowed looks better. Okay, now let's change the foreground color. Actually, let's make that standard black, and let's make the background color a light yellow. Now, you can use it off here off the themes if you want to, but I'm going to go down here and pick the actual yellow. Then come in here and go to more colors. Okay, here's the standard colors. All right, come over here to the custom and just slide that up, make it a little bit whiter, like that. Hit OK. There we go. That looks a lot better. Okay, now that shadow color, as you see there, is gray. Let's change the border color. So click on that box again. Here's the shape outline. All right, let's go and make that a darker, like a black. There we go. That looks like a piece of sticky paper now. If you don't want it that black, maybe go like there. Let's see. That looks good. I like that. Now let's save that, come back out here, open it up again, and it looks like a piece of sticky paper. Okay? All kinds of cool stuff you can do. I've got many, many lessons on form design and aesthetics and tricks like that. I'll put a link to my aesthetics video. It's one of my tech help videos. Go watch that if you want to learn how to make really cool looking, customized form designs, which we are going to spend a lot of time on form design. And of course, you can use all the standard techniques in here that you might be familiar with from Word or Excel. You can change the font, right? You can change the font color. Right, here's the fonts up here, Calibri. You can see all the different fonts are available, the font sizes. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over this stuff. I assume you know the basics of using Microsoft Word, for example. Now, Access does have themes available as well. They're right here. And these themes allow you to have like sets of fonts and colors and all those things. And ours haven't changed because I used standard colors instead, which is what I always use. But let me show you. Let me demonstrate what themes do real quick. I don't spend a lot of time on them because personally I don't use them. But let's say this background color here. Let's say I used a theme color. All right, we'll pick just one of these theme colors like that. And for the notes, I'll pick. Let's go with that yellow. Okay. Now, if I go to Form Design and watch as I change the theme, you can see all the colors and fonts change in the database form. See that? All right. I personally don't use these, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. All right. In fact, I'm going to go back and go undo, and put those back the way they were. I like mine better. But that's themes. Everyone always asks about them. If you like them, great, use them. If not, I never use them, to be honest. I stick with standard colors. That way, if the user does change the theme, my forms still stay the way they're supposed to look. But you can change all kinds of things. You can change the background color, the foreground color. If you go to the Format tab here, you can change the shape outlines thickness. Here's line thickness down here if you want a thick border like that. See? Okay, you can change the border color like that. Okay, all kinds of stuff. And we'll be doing a lot more with this in future lessons. In Lesson 4, we're going to get a brief introduction to relationships in our database. We'll learn why we want to use relationships, the different types of relationships, the difference between primary and foreign keys. We'll set up an appointment table, learn about default values, and the date and now functions. Next up, we're going to talk about relationships in your database. Now, relationships are something that I normally didn't cover in my older series until the expert lessons. I wait till expert level 1. After 9 beginner lessons, I give you all kinds of foundational material about building forms and tables and queries and reports and all that good stuff. And then I wait till expert level 1 to go over relationships so I can cover them properly, because there's a lot to relationships. There really is. But Everyone always asks me about relationships when they're in the middle of the beginner series. Well, how do I take a customer and list all of their appointments, or how do I take a customer and list all of their cars that they have, or the orders that I want to put in the system for them? And you need multiple tables for that stuff, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. So since everybody always asks me about relationships, I figured I would put a preview and give you a simple example of relationships now in Beginner 2. But I want you to keep in mind that we're going to do complete coverage from our News Team 7, right? Complete coverage will start in Access Expert 1. So today we're just going to go over a little bit about relationships just so I can whet your palate a little bit. All right, so what are relationships? Well, Access is called a relational database, and a relational database simply means that the data is organized and can be accessed according to one or more relationships between the tables. Okay, like I mentioned a minute ago, customers to orders. Okay, you don't put all that information in one table. You have a customer table and an order table. Different types of stuff go in their own tables. All right, cars, customers, orders, contacts. All right, classes and students. Those are all separate types of stuff. For example, if you're dealing with customers and orders, you can't put the order information in the customer table because you don't know how many orders a customer might place. They might place one, they might place hopefully 100, right? So you can't put all those fields in the customer table. I see that time and time again when people send me their databases. They've got like 10 different address fields, right? No, you make separate tables for that stuff, and you're going to learn how in just a minute. And the reason why we use relational databases is to help minimize errors, increase efficiency, and eliminate duplicate data, okay? For example, let's say you're doing customers to vehicles. Okay, now if you're using a flat file database, an old school database, or an Excel spreadsheet, okay, I see lots of people are upgrading to Access because they've been using Excel for years and years, and they want something more efficient. Okay, now let's say you sell cars. You've got one customer, and he buys a car. You got Joe Smith, and his address, his phone number, and there's his car. And yes, forgive this, I actually borrowed. I took these images from my original Access 2003 lesson that I did way back years and years ago. So it's kind of an homage to my first lesson. So that's why they're cheesy clip art. Did I do better? Yeah, but these are kind of neat. So I kept them. Okay, so Joe Smith now comes back a couple years later and buys a second car. Okay, so now as you can see, you've got Joe Smith, his phone number again, his address again, and his car information for the new car. Okay? Well, then he buys another one a few years later. And you can see how now we have duplicate information. We got Joe Smith in there 3 times, okay? And it's just not a very efficient system. Now Joe's buddy comes in, Bill Jones, because he gave him your card, and he gets a like a little commission or something from you for referring his buddy, referral fee, let's call it. And now you got Bill Jones in there. Bill buys 2 cars, okay? So you can see all the duplicate data that's filling up our tables now. Now, the proper way to store this information is you have one record in your customer table for Joe Smith with his information, right? The stuff pertaining to the customer. Then you have a separate table for your vehicles with the year, make, and model of the vehicle and all the other vehicle information, right? The VIN and mileage and all that stuff. Okay, you don't put that in the customer table. And what we will use to relate this stuff together are those IDs. We learned about auto numbers, right? In Beginner 1, we learned about what an auto number is. So Joe is customer number 101. Let's say that's his auto number. That's his customer ID, okay? So we store the customer ID in the customer table, and we take that and we put that in the car table, the vehicle table. So now, because this has 101 in it, I can relate that back to Joe Smith's record. Right? And that's how I can tell who owns each car. Okay, so now I got 3 customers, right? Joe Smith, Bill Jones, Sam Price. And I can see each of their IDs here, and I can easily tell who owns what car. Put a 102 in there and a 103 in there for Sam Price or Small Price, whatever that was. I don't know what I was thinking. And apparently Joe and Sam are twins, I guess. I don't know. All right, so you see how you put the customer ID in the other table. Okay, now that customer ID is the key field. And there are 2 types of key fields, and you don't have to remember these names, folks. You don't got to, again, I'm going to go over this again when we get to expert level 1. There's a primary key and there's a foreign key. Okay? Now the primary key is the key in that table that uniquely identifies that record. Okay, and you'll only have one of them. Okay, it's indexed, no duplicates. That's the primary key field. So for customers, it's your customer ID. Now, the vehicle table will also have a primary key, right? An auto number itself. And that uniquely identifies each vehicle. So that's the primary key for this table. All right, customer ID is the primary key for the customer table. The vehicle ID is the primary key for the vehicle table. The foreign key is this guy. Okay, it's a key field, but it's a key field from this table. We just use it to determine what customer owns what car. So in this table, customer ID is the foreign key. All right, see how that works? All right, and again, just don't worry about all the terminology and stuff. Just try to grasp the concepts. Now, if that wasn't confusing enough, there are 3 different types of relationships. There are actually more, but these are the 3 most popular ones. There's one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. All right, the most popular relationship is one-to-many. That's the one you're going to see all the time. All right, one-to-many is what we looked at a minute ago. One customer to many vehicles. That's the most standard relationship that you're going to see in most databases. One-to-one relationships aren't used that often. Many-to-many come into play. Let's say you're doing company drivers to vehicles, and you can assign a driver to multiple vehicles and a vehicle to multiple drivers. That's a many-to-many relationship. Don't worry about these 2 types, though. These are much more advanced, and I cover those in later expert classes. So let's go back to our database. This is the database in the last lesson, and let's create a table that we can use for an example with relationships. Let's make a table to track appointments for each customer. All right, like in a little appointment book. Each customer can have multiple appointments. Okay, so it'll be a one-to-many relationship. So let's create a new table. Create table design. That opens up this guy. All right, what's our primary key going to be? It's going to be appointment ID. That'll be our auto number. Okay, that's our primary key field. Each appointment has its own ID that we can use to uniquely identify that appointment, that specific instance of an appointment. Now, how do I know what customer this appointment is with? Well, that's going to be the customer ID. Now, here's the trick, and this is very important. Yes, customer ID is an auto number, but it's an auto number in this table. Okay? It's an auto number here in this table. So we don't want to make it an auto number here, because auto number says start at 1 and just give me next consecutive number for every consecutive record. We don't want that. We want to store the customer ID for the customer who belongs to this appointment here. So we have to make this a number, a regular number, specifically a number of type long integer, but long integer is the default, so don't worry about that. All right, it's got to be a number of type long integer, and this is the foreign key. Okay, that's how we know what customer this is. Now, what other information about this appointment might we want to store in here? Well, how about the date time of the appointment? Now, don't just use the word date or the word time. Those are reserved words in Access. The word date has a special meaning. Okay? Date time is fine. That's not a reserved word. And we want to put both the date and the time together in a date time field. Okay? By the way, if you want to learn more about the reserved words, there's a reserved word list on my website. I'll put a link in the links section down below for reserved words. All right, what's next? Whenever I'm making any table, I like to go through the who, what, where, why, when, how, right? We got the who, we got the what, it's an appointment. You could put in here a description, right? That'll be a short text field. And then I like to put description and notes, and that's a long text field. And pretty much every table that I build, it'll get a description and notes. All right, because when you want to see it in the list, the description can be like, you know, consultation for a new project. And then the notes, you can put all the stuff that you talked about if you want to. If you want to store a location, you can put that in there, like an address or something, you know, the where. All kinds of stuff. Whatever you want to put in here to track this appointment. Okay? If it's closed, right, is closed, you can make that a yes, no field. Or I like to go is open. Okay? There's all kinds of stuff you can do. All right? Whatever you feel you want to track for this appointment. While we're in here, let's put a couple of default values in here. Default values are values that the field will start with when you create a new record. For example, the date time here. I don't want to have to type in the date and time every time. So let's put in the current date and time in the appointment table. So I'm going to come down here where it says default value. Now I'm going to put equals now and then open close parentheses. Let me zoom in so you can see that better. All right, Shift F2 to zoom in. Equals now. Now is a function that will return the current date and time. So it'll put the date and time in there. Now, yeah, appointments are usually in the future, so you can modify it, you can change it, but that's what it's going to start at. If you want just the date, you can put in here equals date, like that. That'll give you today's date at midnight. Okay, but I'm going to put now in there just so it starts off with the current date and time. Okay, and maybe is open, I'll change that default value to yes instead of no. So I'll come right in here and put in the word yes. So that'll start checked. And then when the appointment's done, when it's closed, I uncheck the box. And I know which appointments are closed. Okay? Okay, so let's save this table. Let's Control S to save. This will be my appointment table. Save it. Now, it says there's no primary key to find. We talked about this in Beginner 1. I always forget to do this manually, so I'm going to let Access do it. I'll say yes. Access will find that auto number right there and make that the primary key. Okay? This is the foreign key. Remember, this is the primary key. Okay, so let's save this guy, close it down. Now, I want to put some sample appointments in, right? Just like we did in Beginner 1. I'm going to open up the customer table just so I can see my customers. I'm going to slide this over like this. Okay, now I'm going to open up the appointment table next to it. Now, I like to do this with some sample data just when I'm building my database and to teach you guys how this stuff works. Okay, and this just means these little pound symbols here, this just means that that field isn't wide enough. So let's make that wider. There we go. Okay, so there's my appointment ID. You can see new, that's my auto number. You got the customer ID, which starts off as 0 because it doesn't know who the customer is. Date, time, description, notes, and is open. All right, so let's put our first record in here. Now we'll tab over or click on the customer ID. Now, who is our first appointment with? Let's say it's with me, Richard Rost. I am customer ID 1. So in this field here, I'll put a 1. Okay. The date time of the appointment, let's say it's for 1/16 at 6 p.m. Okay, and we'll call this a consultation. Okay, there's my first appointment. Let's put in a couple more. Next appointment, let's say we got an appointment with James Kirk. Now, what's James Kirk? James Kirk is customer 12. So I'll put a 12 over here for the customer ID. All right, this appointment's going to be on 1/18 at 3 p.m. And it's to refit the enterprise. And notes if you want to put notes here. Okay, a little bit bigger. Okay, all right, we're trucking along here. Let's put a third appointment in the system. Notice I don't have any of the other customer details in here. You don't need them, because if I need to know this person's first and last name, I can look over here to record 12. I got James Kirk. I can scroll to the right and get his phone number, his address, all that stuff. All right, we don't store all this extra customer data in the appointment table. Okay, now at this point, everyone always asks me, do I always have to look up these customer IDs from this table? No, I'm going to show you how to do something called a combo box in a minute when we build a form for our appointments. Okay, all right, come over here. Let's put in a third appointment. This one is for Will Riker, so he's customer 15, so I'll put that 15 right here. Okay, and his appointment's on the 20th at 4 p.m. And this is to D. Borg, the Deep Space Nine. He's going to help with that project. Okay. All right, now let's say that my consultation was finished on the 16th, so I'm going to mark that closed. But I want to put another appointment for me in here. So next appointment, customer 1 again. Okay, now it's for 1/22 at 11 a.m. And it's to discuss service. Okay, see that? Now we've got 2 appointments in the system for me. I'm customer ID 1. Okay, and you can uniquely tell who each of these people are based on the customer ID. I don't have to put any information about appointments in the customer table. I can have an unlimited number of appointments for each customer, right? And that's why we use 2 separate tables. I don't have duplicated customer information over here in the appointment table. Okay, so now we have our appointment table set up. Now we can make a nice form where we can put this information in just like we did with our customer form. Okay, and we'll make a combo box to select the customer from a list instead of having to remember that customer ID number. We'll do that in the next lesson. In Lesson 5, we're going to build an appointment form, very similar to the customer form that we built in the last class. We'll make a customer combo box using the combo box wizard. So we can pick a customer from a drop-down list of customers for the appointment. Then we'll learn about the command button wizard, so we can make a button to open up the form and show just appointments for the customer that we're on. So lots of cool stuff in Lesson 5. Okay, so now we have a customer table and an appointment table, and the appointment table stores the customer ID so we know which customer is assigned to that appointment. Now, let's make a form for our appointment information. This will be a little bit of a review from the first class when we made the customer form, but we're going to make a lot of forms over the course of this course. And it's something that is a skill that you really should practice. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And I can't stress enough. Spend a lot of times working on your forms, make them look pretty, make them look good. It's a skill you will thank me for in the long run. So, create. And then we're going to go to Form Design. The first thing we're going to do is assign this form to the appointment table. So open up the form's properties right there. On the Data tab, find the record source. Drop that down and pick Appointment T. Now, this form is bound to the appointment table. That means it's going to get all its data from the appointment table. Okay? Now, the next thing I like to do, I like to give it a splash of color. That's the first thing I like to do. So let's make appointments, let's go orange. Okay? Yeah, we did blue for customers, so we'll use orange for appointments. I like to keep all the same stuff color-coded. Okay, so the next thing to do is add our fields onto the form. All right, under Form Design, open up the Add Existing Fields window here. And we're going to click on the appointment ID, hold the Shift key down, click on the last one, which is the Is Open field. Let the Shift key go, right? Then click and drag any one of them, drop it right about there. And there's all my fields. All right, then we'll drag them up into the corner like this. Okay. Or if you want, you can grab them all. I'll undo that. All right, grab them all like this, or you can grab them all like this using the rulers, or you can draw a box that goes around all of them, whichever one you want, and then slide them up in the corner like that. Okay. I'm going to take Is Open and slide Is Open up over here. And we got a lot of wasted space in here. Let's kind of shrink these up a little bit like that. Okay, looks good. Now the form is bigger than it needs to be, so let's grab this right edge over here, slide that in. I'll scroll down and grab that bottom and slide that up. This, so we can get rid of all that extra empty space. All right, description can be bigger. So can date time. That's not going to fit in that field. Make it out to about there. Let's see what I got so far. So let's save this as my appointment F, my appointment form. I like to close it and then reopen it. Let's take a peek. Okay, looks good so far. Let's left align all of these fields. So let's go back to Design View. Select all of these guys on the Format tab. Hit the left align button. All right, save it, close it, open it. All right, looks much better. Okay. Now, as I said when we were doing the customer form, I like to make my primary key fields gray like that. All right, so let's go back to Design View. And I'm going to take this guy and go to Format and drop down the background color, and we're going to go with gray like that. So people know they can't change that. I also like to change that notes field. Now, here's a trick. All right, here's the customer form. Now, if you're familiar with Word and Excel, there's a thing called a Format Painter. All right, the Format Painter, if you click on this cell, for example, this field here, go to Format. There's the Format Painter right there. Okay, if you click on the Format Painter and then click on somebody else, it copies the format. All right, so it copied that border and the yellow color and the font and all that stuff. But it doesn't work between forms. I hate that. You can't do this. You can't click on this guy, go to Format Painter, and then click on this one. It doesn't work between the different forms. Oh, well. So, first of all, let me undo this change over here. Let me undo that because I don't want that. So, Control-Z, undo. Put that back the way it was. Now, I could copy this control over here and then copy its format, but look at this. I got a notes field over here and a notes field over there. It's the same field. So I can just do this. I can just delete this guy, right? And then copy this whole notes field, right? Control-C, click, Control-V, and there you go. And since the fields are both named the same thing, they're interchangeable between the two forms. That's why I like to put a description field and a notes field on most things. I don't have a description field on the customer form. That's okay. All right, but over here, like vehicles, I'll have a description and notes. Appointments, description and notes. It's just something that I like to do. And that way I can use my fields all between the different forms too. Okay, I'm done ripping stuff off from the customer form. We can close that. All right, let's close this guy, take a look at it, save changes, see what it looks like. All right, looks pretty good. Looks pretty good, and I can cycle through them and see the different appointments for my different people. Okay. Now, I promised in the last lesson that I would show you a way where we wouldn't have to remember the customer ID, because as it is right now, if I want to put a new appointment in, I have to do the same thing that I had to do with the tables before. All right, let's say I want to find Anna Pecor and put an appointment in for her. Well, I have to go to here. I have to go to the last record, right? Hit the new button down here, the add new button. For the customer ID, I have to type in a 5. All right, and then I could put in the date and time and the description, stuff and whatever. Okay, but I don't want to have to type in that 5 or look up her record. I want to just be able to pick from a list that says Anna Pecor in it. Okay, so let's close this guy and let's design view our appointment form. Let's delete the customer ID. Goodbye. We're going to replace it with a combo box. A combo box is sometimes called a drop-down list. All right, you see them on the web all over the place. You can sometimes see them in Excel. All right, it's a box you click on, you drop it down, you scroll through all the records, and you pick one. All right, I want to pick a customer from the list of customers. So come up here in the toolbox, find that guy. It's called a combo box. Why is it called combo? It's a combination between a text box and a list box. A list box is basically an always open version of the combo box. All right, so click on that. Click right about there. And the combo box wizard starts up. Now, I'm going to spend a lot of time with this combo box wizard over the next several classes. All right, we're going to do another combo box wizard, combo box in a beginner class. And then when we get to expert, we're going to be making all kinds of combo boxes. But for today, for our relationships preview, we're going to make one simple combo box where we can pick a customer from a list of customers. So there's 3 things you can do with the combo box wizard. You can have a combo box get the values from another table or query. That's the one we want for this example, because right now we're in the appointment form, right? So I want to get the values from another table. The other table is the customer table, right? Okay, so we'll pick this one, but let's just talk about the other 2 real quick. I will type in the values that I want. That's for making a list of static options. Okay, if you're making a list of options like colors that won't change, red, blue, green, yellow, whatever. Okay, or people will use it for shipping methods, right? US Mail, UPS, FedEx, whatever. All right, and those are a list of options that almost never change. Okay, and the third option is you can use a combo box to find a record. So you can drop that box down, find a customer, and it will locate their record. We're going to cover that in a future lesson too. And I promised I wouldn't keep saying we'll cover that in a future lesson without telling you what lesson it's in. It's covered in Access Beginner 8. Okay, it's called a search combo box. I'll put a link to it in the link section down below the video there. If you want to go learn that now, it's in Access Beginner 8. I promised I'd stop saying that because in my previous versions of this class, everyone would yell at me, "Oh, you keep saying we're going to learn it in a future class." Well, yeah, I can't cover everything at once, right? Access Beginner 8 if you want to learn this guy. Okay, but I want option 1 here. We're going to get a list of values from another table or query. Hit next. Okay, which table or query should provide the values for the combo box? Where am I getting my list of customers from? The customer table. Okay, you can also get it from queries too, but we didn't build a query for this. We're just going to get it straight from the table. Next. All right, what fields do you want included in the combo box? You always want to bring over the customer ID first. Even though we don't want to see that ID, we have to have it in the combo box so we can store that value in the appointment table. That's important. It'll be a hidden first column. Okay, then what do you want to bring over next? I want to bring over last name. All right, because that's what you're going to see when the box is closed. Okay, and then after that, I'll bring over a first name. So it'll be like Kirk, James, for example. And you'll see Kirk when the box is closed. If you want to open it up, you'll see last name and first name. Is there a way to put them together? Yeah, it's a little more advanced. It's called string concatenation. I do have a lesson that covers that too. I'll put a link down below. Look for string concatenation. Okay, if you want to learn how to put these together into one field. It involves a query and a little bit of magic. Again, we got to walk before we can run. But if you want to run now, I'll put a link down below. All right, next. Okay, you can sort by up to 4 fields. I'm going to sort this by last name, then by first name. So all the Smiths will come together, right? And you'll get Joe Smith, Amy Smith, whatever. Okay, next. Now, this is what the columns will look like in the box when the box is open. It says hide key column recommended. If you turn that off, there's your ID. The first visible column down here is the one you'll see when the box is closed. So we want to hide that. We don't want to see that customer ID. I don't care about that customer ID. I don't want to know what it is. I really don't care. Access needs to know it to make the relationship, but I don't care. We can resize these columns too to make them fit. All right. Sometimes last names can be a little longer. We'll go like that. Okay, looks good so far. Let's hit next. Okay, now this is the money question right here. What do you want to do with this value? Do you want to hang on to it and remember the value for later use? Or do you want to store that value in a field in the appointment table? Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to store that value in the customer ID. We're going to pick a customer from the list of customers from the customer table. Okay, what am I picking? I'm picking a customer, so I've got a customer ID. Now I want to store that value in the customer ID of the appointment table, the foreign key. Okay, that's the whole point of this combo box. Pick a customer, store the ID, without you having to know what the ID is. Next, what label would you like for the combo box? It's just the label that goes next to it. We'll put in here customer, like that. And then finish. And there we go. There's our customer combo box. Make it a little bit wider. Right there. All right, let's see it in action. Save, close, and open up the appointment form, and there you go. Look at that. I can now see the list of customers, and I can pick the customer from a list instead of having to know the customer ID. See that? How nice is that? Okay, now, next thing I'm going to teach you is go into Design View, open up the properties for that combo box. This is one of my pet peeves. Whenever you create an object like that with the wizard, it comes in with a weird name like Combo 7. I don't like Combo 7. So I'm going to call this Customer Combo. Okay, there's a name property and a control source property. And we're going to go over this in a lot more detail in the expert classes. The name is what is the name of that actual text box or combo box. This guy is notes. This guy is description. Usually it's the same thing as the control source. Okay, the control source is what field in the table that data is bound to. All right, so when you change this value, where is it going to be saved in the table? If you drop that box down there, you can see all the fields in the table. Now, I like to call combo boxes customer combo, right, or vehicle combo, appointment combo, whatever. I put the word combo on it, and my reasons are a little more advanced. When you get into programming, it's nice to know that you're dealing with a combo box. But just this is one of those things where just trust me, and this I really will explain later when we get into programming. Okay, hours and hours and hours from now. So just trust me. You can call it customer ID if you really, really want to. All right, and it won't hurt anything if you leave it as combo 7. It's okay. All right. Again, this is kind of like a preview of some advanced things to come. All right, so save that. Another thing I want to mention when you get to this point is this object here, this combo box that we put in the form, is not in the tab order. Okay, if I press the tab key, it jumps past it and goes to date time. Then there, then is open is next, then notes, then it cycles back to here. Okay, the tab order is the way in which the cursor moves between the fields when you press the tab key. And you want to make your tab order nice and easy for people to use your forms. So we're going to right click, Design View. All right, right here is a thing called tab order. Now I'm going to cover tab order in a lot more detail in Access Beginner 8 as well. But I'm going to give you a preview of it now because, again, people always ask me about this. So I'm going to show you real quick how to change the tab order. All right, come down here and just click on this button that says Auto Order. Boom. It rearranges these guys left to right, top to bottom. That's all you got to do. Now hit OK, save it, close it, and then come back in here. And now when I tab, it goes over to is open next because it goes left to right. Then down there, tab, tab, tab. Then the next record over there, down, 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 down. See? That's how you fix your tab order. Everybody always asks me after beginner 2, how do I, this tab order is all messed up. Well, that's how you do it. Okay. And again, access beginner 8, lots more on the tab order. Okay. One more thing with this. Now, we've got the customers. All right, I'll move this back over here. By the way, when you move a form and save it, Control S, close it and reopen it, it'll remember where you saved it. It'll save that position. So if I put it over here now, hit save, close it, reopen it. It should open in that spot. Only forms will do that, right? Tables, queries, even reports, they don't always save their position. Forms should save their position. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is how do I go from Richard Rost's customer form to open up the appointments for just him. All right, I'll move this over here and save it there. So when I open this up, now I just happen to be the first appointment. So that was just serendipitous. But if I go to, let's go to James Kirk here, for example. Where's Kirk? Come here. Kirk. All right, now I want to open up just Jim Kirk's appointments. Well, now I got to come over here and cycle through this to find, oh, I just passed it. There it is. All right, I want to click on a button to say, just show me his appointments. All right, we can do that with a command button, and there's a command button wizard. Let's go back to design view. All right, let's make some room down here at the bottom of the form. Bring this guy down like that. Find the button up here. It's called a command button, but it's just called button when you hover over it. All right, drop a button down here. The command button wizard opens. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. And again, we're going to spend a ton of time with all these different buttons. But for today, go to Form Operations, open a form. Next, what form do you want to open? Well, we're already on the customer form. I want to open up the appointment form. Next. Now, do you want to show all of the records, or do you want to open the form and find specific data to display? Yeah, I want to find specific data. All right, hit next. Now, what is the specific data you want to find? Well, I want to find the appointments where the customer ID on the appointment form equals the customer ID on the customer form. Right? The primary key over here to the foreign key over there. Then I'm going to click this little button. Boop. See that? It matches them up. All right, that's why we got to call them the same thing too. Okay, next. Now, you want a little pretty picture on the button, or do you want to put text on there? I want to put text and change that to appointments. And then next. Give the button a meaningful name. Okay, appointment button, BTN. I like to end all my buttons in BTN. That's just my thing. That's what I do. All right, and then finish. All right, there's my appointments button. Okay. Look good. All right. Save it. Close it. All right. So let's open up the customer form. Let's find Jim Kirk's record. Now, instead of scrolling through them, let's click here. And then I'm going to go to Find. And I'm going to type in Kirk. All right. And then I'll hit Find Next. Oh, there he is. All right. That's a quick find. You can do Find and Replace. We're going to talk a lot more about Find and Replace later. Okay. James Kirk. Now I'll click the Appointments button. Boom. And it brings me right to his appointment. And you can see it says 1 of 1 filtered. That means there are more records, but we're showing you just the ones for Kirk. Okay. Who else has appointments in here? That Picor, right? Where's Anna Picor? Oh, I can't find. Let's go here. Click. Find. P-I-C-O-R-E. There's Anna Picor. All right. Appointments. Boom. There's her appointment for stuff. And that's it. That's how you open up the related records in a different form. Now, you can also do something called a subform. We're going to talk about subforms in a future lesson too. Again, I'll put a link to subforms down below. But you can have a little form that's open inside of this form to show their appointments that way too. Like here's my tech help database that I have mentioned before. If you go to the customer form, all right, you can open up contacts. We're going to do contacts when we get to the expert lessons, right? Here's each time you talk to this person, it's a contact. This is a separate form. I also have a customer with contacts that's got a subform there too, so you can see all of their information in this subform. That's another way to do it. All right, and both have value. I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So there you go. Now you know about relationships. You know how to make an appointment table. All right, to store information about appointments. You know how to make a form and a button to open up just the appointments for that customer. Okay, and how to make a combo box to pick the customer from a list of customers. All right, there you go. That is your introduction to relationships. And again, I cannot stress enough, if this seemed confusing at all to you, don't worry about it. We're going to be doing a lot more. I spend a couple of hours on just relationship basics when we get to the expert classes. We go over it in a lot more detail. You'll get comfortable with it by the time we're done. All right, so I hope you learned something with the relationships today. Welcome to the Q&A from students portion of the class. I like to go over a lot of the popular questions that have been asked. I've been teaching this course for over 20 years now. This is, in fact, the third time I've recorded this specific class. There was Access 102, which was back in 2002, I think, the first video recording I did of this class. And then there was the Access 2010 version, which was back in 2010. Maybe I don't know. No, I think I was a year late with it, so 2011 that came out. And so this is the third time that I've re-recorded this exact class. I did not do relationships the last time I covered this. I waited until the expert series to do relationships. So that part of this class is new, so I'm expecting a bunch of questions on that, which I normally cover in the expert series. But let's go down the list of the popular questions that have come up in this class over the last 20 years. I pulled them off my website, off the forums, off the emails people have sent me. First off, how do you customize the ribbon? It says, I see you've got some different buttons on top of your ribbon on the toolbar. How do you do that? Well, I cover customizing the ribbon and the quick access toolbar in Access Expert Level 5. And again, I'll put links to all this stuff down below. But let me show you real quick what I do. So this is the ribbon here. Now, it's collapsed now. If you double-click on any of these, you see it expands the ribbon. If you double-click again, it minimizes it. I like to keep it minimized most of the time, except when I'm building, of course. I'm going to cover customizing the actual ribbon itself later, but this thing up here is called the Quick Launch Toolbar, or the Quick Access Toolbar. And you can customize this guy by just dropping this little button down here. All right, and you can add things to it like this. Like if you want to add save, click save, and it adds a little save floppy disk icon there. I've got some custom buttons on here that I've added with macros to launch certain things. Like this opens up my main menu. So if I close that, I can just click on this guy to open up the main menu. Other databases that I've got, I can open up the customer form or whatever other forms I use. I'm going to turn that save by off, okay? And I put design view on here, running a queries on here. And if you drop this down, here's some popular commands up here. But you go to more commands down below, and it opens up this guy, okay? You can customize the quick access toolbar this way. You can go through all the popular commands. You can go through each of the individual sections in here. And again, I'll cover all of this in Access Expert 5. But you basically pick what you want, like let's say datasheet view, and add it to your quick launch toolbar. Now when I hit OK, it shows up top. It says you have to close the database, but you really don't. There it is, right there. Datasheet view. See? All right, which we're not going to use for that. So I'll turn that back off by going into more commands. And where's datasheet view? Right there, and remove. That's all. These are all just things that I've added. All right, so that's how I do it, and we'll cover that a lot more in Access Expert 5. Next up, can't see text. I've got a text box on my form that doesn't seem to be working. I can't see any text in it. I know the data is being saved in the table, but it won't show in the form. This is actually something that's come up probably 3 or 4 times in the past couple of years. Let me show you what happened. In each case, I had to have them send me some screenshots, or one customer actually had to send me the database so I could figure out what the problem is. Let me show you. Okay, so here I am in a customer form. Okay, design view. Now I'm going to stop recording for a second, and I'm going to show you what it looks like from their end. Okay, I put it back in a regular form view. Ready? I'm just going to type something in here. I'll type in Dennis, D-E-N-N-I. Oh, what's going on? Why can't I see anything? All right. If you select the text, sometimes you can see it, but no, I'm not seeing anything. But I know if I go back to the table, it's in there. It put Dennis in there. What's the problem? It's real simple and it's real easy, but it's one of those things that'll drive you nuts if you don't know what it is. In every single one of these cases, here's what happened. The user had this selected and went up here and changed the foreground color to white accidentally. That's it. Sometimes it's the simplest solutions that are the ones that drive you the most nuts. But that's all it was. They just changed the foreground color. That happened probably 4 or 5 times in the last few years. Someone said something. I'll figure out, put it in the video for you guys. So if it happens to you, you'll know what the problem is. Next up, is it possible to print a form in design view? Not really. Remember, forms are used for working with on the screen, okay, for entering data, for looking data up. All right, when you want to print stuff out, printing right there tells me report. You print reports, all right, and you could format them the same way. However, if you do want to print out the design view of a form, all right, you can come in here. Let's say you're in this form. You want to go to design view, all right. If you want to print this, maybe for your own records, or you want to show someone else your layout or your field names or whatever, you can just do a screen capture of this. Because if you go to print this right now, all right, the only way you can get, there's no print on here. There's no print if you right click on here. You have to go to File, Print, because you're not supposed to print forms. And then what it does is I'll do a print preview. And you get this, but it goes back to form view, first of all. You're not in design view. And it looks like this. I mean, yeah, you can print out forms. They're not supposed to be printed. You want to use reports for that. Okay, but you can use something called the snip and sketch tool. It comes with Windows, and just do a screen capture of it. Right, go into your database, go into design view, like this, and then just snip this out, paste it into Paint or Word or whatever you want to use to print it. Okay, and yeah, people ask me this, so that's why it's in this video. Next up, and this is a very popular question: can I start my auto numbers at a value greater than 1? Yeah, you can, but I want to underscore that auto numbers are not for you. Don't worry about what the auto numbers are. Everyone is always like, well, I don't want to start my customers at customer number 1. Yeah, you don't want to do that, of course, because you don't want someone knowing that they're customer number 4. So if you want a number that is customized or random or whatever, there's other techniques you can use, but don't use auto numbers for those. Auto numbers are for making relationships in the database only. You shouldn't care about them. Go watch those 2 videos. My auto numbers video, it's a separate video just on auto numbers and why you should use them. And I have a counter video too for people who want to make their own custom counter. Let's say you want to make order numbers for your customers that are customized just for them. So each customer's orders are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're just for that customer. All right. Or you want to start your auto number at, your counter at like 5,000. You can do that, but don't do it with auto numbers. Do it with regular numbers, and you'll have to use a little tiny bit of VBA code to get them to count up like that, but it's not hard to do. I show you how to do it in that video, and we will talk about this more when we get into the developer series. In fact, in that auto numbers video, I talk about something called the German tank problem. The Allies in World War II were able to figure out how many tanks the Germans were producing because they would capture tanks in battle, and they would be able to see the serial numbers on some of the parts. And so based on that, they could deduce what kind of weaponry they're looking at dealing with. The same thing applies to business, because if you have auto numbers for your IDs for your orders, let's say, and you print out an invoice and it's order 1007, and then 6 months later you print out 1009 for the same customer, or 1011, they'll know you've only put a couple orders in your system since then. So there's a long, big discussion on auto numbers, so go watch that video if you want to learn more about them. But the bottom line is, don't worry about what your auto numbers are. They're not for you. They're for access. They're for internal use only. Next up, I created a combo box, but instead of being able to click on it to open it, it's always open. What did I do wrong? We'll talk about this in Access Beginner Level 8. What you created was called a list box. Let me show you the difference. All right, so in our database earlier today, we made this thing here a combo box. It dropped this down and pick a customer. Okay? What's happening to some people is, instead of using the combo box tool, they used the list box tool, which is on here, and it's right there. It's very similar. It's almost identical to a combo box. And you can actually change between them. Watch this. Right click, change to list box. Look at that. I'm going to move it over here so you can see it better. Get rid of that label. All right, now watch this. It works just the same. If I save this and close it and reopen it again, look at that. It's always open. It's a list box. Sometimes you want to see this. Sometimes you want an open-faced list, and sometimes you want a combo box where it closes. The major difference with the combo box is you can actually start typing the data in a combo box. You can type in SMI, and it'll go right to Peter Smith or Joe Smith. All right, so all you have to do to convert them between the two is right-click, change it back to a combo box, and there it is. Slide it back into place, and there we go. Okay. Open it up. There's your combo box back. All right, combo box and list boxes. And again, we'll talk about the difference in Access Beginner 8. Next up, is there a maximum size to an Access database? I've got many Excel sheets. I should have proofread that better. Sometimes I just copy and paste these from customers' emails or from their forum posts. I've got many Excel sheets, much better, with tens of thousands of records to add. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty big task you got ahead there. The maximum size of any single Access database file is 2 gigabytes. Now, that doesn't sound like it's very big, in the days today with terabyte drives. But 2 gigabytes is actually a lot of data. My whole database, I've been running this business that I have now since 2002. So this is my 20th anniversary this year. I got about 50,000 customers, all the related products, all the related orders, all the related contacts and emails they sent me, all that data together for the past 20 years, and my database is still barely over 1 gigabyte. And that's because I do proper optimizations. I don't store extra junk in there that I don't need. For example, we don't store images and attachments and all that kind of stuff in our database files. Why? We'll get to that later. But 2 gigabytes is a pretty good sized database. Now, if you do need more space than that, you can link multiple database files together. We will talk about that in Access Expert 21, where we cover splitting your database. I have a Tech Help free video as well. That's the split video right there. But in Access Expert 21, we'll give it the full treatment, where we'll talk about multi-user database theory and creating a database that's split across multiple files. Okay? Similar question, is there a maximum number of fields I can have in a table? I need about 300 different bits of information on each customer. The max is 255. You can have 255 fields in any table. Now, realistically, you should never go above 100. I've built some pretty big databases, and if I get a table that's over maybe 50 fields, I start thinking about what can I do to remove some of these fields from this table and put them in a different table. You can, just like you can break databases up into multiple files, you can break tables up into multiple tables. In Access Expert 4, for example, we're going to set up what's called an extended customer table. Okay? Let's say you got 10,000 customers and you have, let's say, demographic information, but you only have it for 10% of your customers. There's no need to put all those empty fields in the customer table, right? When you can put that in a second table and link them together with an ID. That'll be a one-to-one relationship. And again, we'll cover that in Access Expert Level 4. Okay. Another popular question. Do they have a version of Microsoft Access available for the Mac? Nope. That's a simple answer. Nope, they don't. They got Word, they got Excel. No Access. You'll find a lot that Access, it's not as popular as Word and Excel and some of the other Office applications. So Microsoft doesn't give it the love that they give Excel and Word. But there is no Access version available. You can use a PC emulator like Parallels, but honestly, I'm not a Mac person. I haven't used a Mac since high school. We're going back to the 80s here. So I don't know Mac. If you have Mac questions, go on my Access forum on my website and post them for Alex. He's my resident Mac expert, and he should be able to answer them for you. But no, they don't have an Access version for Mac. Another one, I just deleted a text box, combo box, check box, any kind of control here on a form. I get asked this a lot. All right, I deleted it, I saved the form, closed it, reopened it. Is there a way to get it back? Generally, the answer is no. Once you close that form and reopen it again, you're done. The undo is cleared. There's no way to get it back. The only way you can get it back is to restore one of your backups or just recreate the control. Okay? And there's a video there. I've got a link to it on backups. Backing up your database is very important. And I recommend everyone go watch that video to learn how to back up your database. There's a little green triangle in the upper left corner of my text box on the form. What does that mean? Well, it could mean a couple things. One, you might have spelled the control source wrong, or the field isn't in the table. Okay? Or it could be on a command button that's got the same shortcut key as something else. Let me show you an example of each of these. So remember earlier when I copied this notes field and we put it on the appointment form? Remember that? And fortunately, we had a field called notes in both tables under both forms. Well, what if I take company name, okay, copy that, and paste it over here? All right, look what I got. I got this little green hoo-hoo dilly there. Yeah, it's a technical term. It's a hoo-hoo dilly. And all that means is, if you drop this little box down here, it says invalid control property control source. No such field in the field list. So you can edit it. You can edit the form's record source property, blah, 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 blah. Basically, this just means that this thing called company name doesn't exist in this list of fields for this table. Okay? Now, usually, yeah, you can copy fields back and forth between forms. You'll see that error. A lot of the times I see it also when people are typing stuff in, they don't type it in right. All right, so you're typing in the control source description and you type it in wrong like that, and you see that happen. Okay, so I'm going to undo that if I can. Yep, there we go. All right, so that's usually what the problem is there. The other way you might see that little arrow is if you use the same shortcut key on a button. We haven't covered this yet, but all right, so we got this appointments button that we made here. Okay, if you go to design view, okay, here's a little trick. I'm going to teach you this. What class do I teach you this in? This is a trick from Access Expert 4. What you can do is you can go into the caption here of a button and you can put a little ampersand in front of any character. And when you do that, notice there's an underscore underneath it now. So I can just press Alt and that character to push that button. So if I go Alt A, boop, it opens up the appointment form. See, it's just like I push that button. Now, you'll also see that little green hoo-hoo dilly if you have two buttons with the same caption. See that? How when I copied it, it popped up that little guy there too. See? All right, duplicate keyboard shortcut. That's all that is. So you can change it on this button, get rid of it there, maybe put it in front of the P. So now you'll get underscore P. See, now I can press Alt P to push that button. That's all that is. Usually that little green hoo-hoo dilly just means that there's something not right. And if you click on the little warning thing that comes up, it'll tell you what you got to do. Very similar error message. I get this a lot too. One of my text boxes says pound name question mark in it. What does that mean? That just usually means that that field doesn't exist. Right? Same situation as before. If I go into design view here, if I copy a field like company name that doesn't exist over here, and if I save this and open it back up again, you get the pound name error message. That means that that particular field doesn't exist in that form, in the table under the form. Okay, remember these forms are bound to tables. All the data is saved in the tables. Right? Remember that from Access 1, right? All your data is stored in these tables. These forms don't have any data in them. These queries don't have any data in them. All right? They're just looking at the data in the tables in different ways. Okay? I'm getting an unrecognized database format error when I try to start my database. What's that mean? That means your database is somehow corrupted. It does happen, especially if you're running a database over a network and you've got it shared between different people. But it can just happen to you too. If you're the only one running your database and it's on your computer, they can get corrupted from time to time. So there's a couple things you can do. First, you can do what's called a compact and repair. All right, we will learn about compact and repair in Access Beginner 4, but there's a free video on it right there if you want to check that out right now to see what happens if your database becomes corrupted. Of course, watch the backup video because, yeah, your database can be corrupted to the point where you can't compact and repair it. Compact and repair tries to fix any problems, and it squeezes out any empty space that you can get rid of. You know, when you add and delete records, right? You add, delete, add, delete, add, delete. It leaves little holes in your database of empty space. So the compact gets rid of it. It's kind of like sticking your foot in the garbage can and pressing down on the garbage to get rid of all that empty space between, you know, the pieces of garbage. Windows defragmentation. Your Windows hard drive used to do that too, but Windows kind of handles that by itself automatically now. But back in the old days, you know, Windows 95, we used to have to run a defrag utility once in a while. Okay, and if compact and repair doesn't help and you can't restore from a backup, go run down my troubleshooter. See where it says trouble there, that link? I have a troubleshooter checklist on my website. All right, complete with a video. It's got all the different things you can try to run down to fix your database. And I try to put them in the order of, you know, the easiest stuff to check first. All right, check for viruses, do a Windows update, you know, all this stuff. Remove third-party components, reinstall Office, reinstall Windows. So, I mean, there's a whole big long list of things to try here. Okay, and sometimes sometimes databases just get corrupted, like any file. All right, especially if you're using it and like the power goes out and your computer shuts off without saving the database properly. Okay, so there's some things to try. Next up, can you change the background color of a checkbox? Nope. Sorry, I get asked this a lot. The default checkbox control, you can't change it. This guy right here, this checkbox, can't change that. That's just that color. Sorry. That's just the limitation of Access. There are other controls you can use. There are things like toggle buttons and stuff. There are third-party components you can install that have colored checkboxes. I don't like using third-party components, but to answer this question that everybody always asks me, nope, you can't change that checkbox's background color. Sorry. And again, we'll get to we'll talk about some alternatives like toggle buttons in Access Expert 4. Can you add data from multiple tables to the same form? Yes, you can, but I strongly recommend that you don't unless some of that data is just read-only. All right, and I see this a lot from people where you take like the two tables we have customers and appointments. People try to merge those together because you can join them in a query. Let me give you a little preview. I'm going to cover this in the next class, but I'm going to give you a little tiny preview. All right, so if you want to see your customers and your appointments together, you can create a query. Okay, you can bring in both tables. And notice that Access joins them together because it sees a field here called customer ID that's the same in both tables. All right, I'm going to close this. Okay, so if I bring in the customer ID, the first name, the last name, and I can bring over here in the date, time, and description of the appointment, okay, I can save this. Let's call this customer appointment queue. And now I have a query that brings both of those things together. Okay, now you can put this in a form. You can base a form on this query and display all this information, but it's not reliable when you go to edit one or the other. Okay, you can come over here and edit the customer, sure. You can come over here and edit the appointment, sure. But when you get into more complex queries, that's not always reliable. So I don't recommend you do this. What I recommend you do is what we did in class, which is if you have information from one table here, you want to see the related table, open it up with a button and put it over here. Yeah, I messed this up in the previous question. Okay, or you can use a subform, and again, we'll talk about subforms in a future lesson. Here are some other videos to watch. All right, the relational combo box video, I mentioned that earlier. That's for making the combo box to pick a value. There's subforms. If you want to learn about subforms now, that's where you can take like the appointments and put them inside the customer form. Okay. Sometimes what happens is when you do join multiple tables together in a query, the data becomes unupdatable or not updatable. I got a whole video that discusses that. Okay, you join two tables together, now all of a sudden you can't edit any of them. And that just happens. Okay. Again, we're going to talk a lot more about this in the expert series when we get to relationships and bringing together multiple tables, Access Expert 1 and Expert 4. We'll talk a lot more about this stuff. All right, what are the thumbtacks on the recent file list? And this, for some reason, people ask me this all the time. I thought they were pretty much self-evident. Okay, you're in your database, you go to File, okay, and over here, when you hover over these, you'll see this little thumbtack pop up. See that little thumbtack? Okay, well, if you thumbtack something, click it, right? See the thumbtack, now it's locked. Now that guy will be locked and always show up at the top of your recent file list. Or you can go to the pinned, and there's just the stuff that you've pinned. See that? That's all. All that is. Nothing crazy. And finally, what is an LACCDB file? It shows up whenever I open my Access database. That's called a file locking file. It's the lock. It stores lock information for your database. Basically, an Access database is designed from the ground up to be multi-user aware. Okay, so you can have multiple people using the same database file. So when you are editing Joe Smith's record, okay, if someone else tries to edit Joe Smith's record, they get a warning message that says, oh, you can't open Joe Smith and make changes to it. It's already being edited by someone else. That's called record locking. And that LACCDB file controls that. All right, so here I am in my database folder. When I open up this database, all right, let me minimize it. You'll see right there, there's an LACCDB file, and it's tiny. All right, it's only 1 kilobyte. But this guy will be this guy will exist the whole time that this database is open, right? And if I move it over here, let me move it out of the size. See? All right, now as soon as I close this database, here, let me bring this over here like that. Okay, as soon as I close this database, it'll go away. See? Now sometimes it doesn't, especially if your computer locks up and it might be left behind. Can you delete it? Sure, you can delete it if you want to. You don't have to keep it around, but it's not going to hurt anything. And the next time you start the database up, it should see it and take over and work with it. Okay, but that's all that is. It's a file locking database. It manages what is open and what's not open in your database as far as tables that are being accessed and being edited and stuff. Okay, that's one of those things that you don't got to worry about. That's one of the more advanced like developer stuff. Like even me, I don't mess with LACDB files. Just leave them alone. All right, so those are the popular questions that I get asked. If you have questions and you want to see them answered, you can post them in the forum on the website. The page that you're on now, if you scroll down to the bottom, all right, you'll see the forum, each class has its own forum page where you can post questions about this specific class right down there on the bottom of the page. Or you can go to the actual Access forum if you want to, which you'll find that on my website. You can post there too. If it's a generic Access question that's not necessarily pertaining to Access Beginner 2, feel free to post it there. If not, just scroll down the bottom of the page and post it there. All right, so I hope you learned something today. I hope you enjoyed the class. And stick around. The next lesson, we'll do a brief preview of what's coming up in Access Beginner Level 3. So we'll see you soon. Thank you for watching Access Beginner Level 2. Again, brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com and me, Richard Rost. I hope you enjoyed today's class and that you learned something. What's next? Well, next in the series is Access Beginner Level 3. Now, I'm currently in the process of re-recording all of my Access classes. I just finished 1 and 2, obviously. You just watched 2. And I'm working on them. Now, the good news is, once you're past Beginner 1 and 2, the rest of everything that we cover pretty much is the same. It hasn't changed a lot since the 2010, 2013. They're all, Access is pretty much the same. There are some minor differences, like memo fields are now called long text fields and so on. But 99% of the stuff that I've covered in these lessons hasn't really changed. So I'm going to show you what I covered in Access Beginner Level 3 the last time I did it back in 2010. I'm going to cover all of this stuff plus probably some new material as well. So by the time you're watching this, it's currently January of 2022. So depending on when you're watching, hopefully this class will last another 10 years, right? Well, 12 years, this one lasted. But, this stuff has good longevity. Access doesn't change much, all right? And where there are differences, I will note them in the notes on that class. But in Beginner Level 3, we're going to talk about field properties, lots more with tables, field properties, field sizes, formatting, input masks, more with default values, validation rules. That's where you can validate information as it's entered into the table. There's my old logo. It's kind of cheesy, huh? All right, it's an hour and 19 minutes before. Every time I re-record it, it gets longer. So Beginner 3 is going to be probably 2 hours long by the next time I do it. We'll go more in depth in the table properties, right? You can see the interface has changed a little bit since then, but not much. It's all, it's all cosmetic, really. We'll talk a lot more about input masks, date formats, talk more about default values, validation rules, what to do when that rule is violated, all kinds of stuff. Here's the full outline, all the stuff I used to cover. Okay. You will find that on my website. I'll put a link to it down below so you can click on it and get to it easily. One thing I want to mention, if you're planning on learning with me, if you want to go through my entire series, I have something called the Learning Connection. It's a membership program where you get one new class every week or whatever frequency you want. You could do one class every 2 weeks, one class a month. You could do 2 classes, 3 classes a week, whatever you want to do. You'll save 50% on the regular prices of my courses. All right, you can join now. Here's all the questions and answers. You can read all about it. You can cancel whenever you want to. And this is for people who want to start at the beginning. You've already gone through levels 1 and 2. You'll get level 3, then level 4, level 5, then the expert series, and you get a 50% discount. It's a great membership program. And also, don't forget to check out my Tech Help videos. I've given you a lot of links in this class to other videos. All right, my Tech Help series, it's kind of like my weekly sort of kind of video blog where I go through and I answer questions that were sent in. All right, and you can see here, I try to make 1 or 2 new ones of these every week. There's lots and lots of them on here. I got like 200 plus of them now. These aren't really for beginners. All right, so you might want to wait until you're maybe closer to the expert series. Maybe get a couple more levels under your belt first. But once you get up to maybe, beginner level 4 or 5, you might want to start checking these out, especially if you have a question more about subforms or input masks or whatever. All right, so that's my video Q&A series called Tech Help. One thing I would appreciate, if you could take just a few minutes, is your feedback on how much you enjoyed or didn't enjoy this course. Let me know. Be brutally honest. I appreciate the feedback. The only way I can make my course better, as I've been doing over the past 20 years, hopefully making it better, is because I do get a lot of feedback, a lot of surveys from you, my customers, my students. So there's the link right there. It's the survey page. pretty straightforward. It's a bunch of yes, no's, and a couple of comment boxes. So just let me know what you thought, and I really would appreciate it. If you want to learn how to do anything, if there's something specific about Access or even Excel or Word that you can't figure out and you want to learn how to do it, first there's the search box on my website. Try typing in what you're looking for in the search box. It might come up. If not, drop this little more box down and go to the Access Index. All right, that opens up a searchable page here. This jumped from 1 to 14 back then, but it's got every keyword for every topic for every video I've ever done. So if you're searching for something like VLOOKUP or you want to learn how to do queries, just go to that page, search for it, and it'll take you right to where you need to be. Here's my social stuff. There's my blog, which basically is just the news that I post on my website. I'm on Twitter. And, of course, my YouTube page, where most of you found me, is on YouTube. So once again, on behalf of Access Learning Zone, I am Richard Rost. Thank you very much for watching this video, and we'll see you again in Access Beginner 3. How do you become a member? Click on the Join button below the video. After you click the Join button, you'll see a list of all the different membership levels that are available, each with its own special perks. Silver members and up will get access to all of my extended cut tech help videos, one free beginner class each month, and more. Gold members get access to download all of the sample databases that I build in my tech help videos, plus my code vault, where I keep tons of different functions that I use. You'll also get a higher priority if you decide to submit any tech help questions to me, and you'll get one free expert class each month after you've finished the beginner series. Platinum members get all the previous perks, plus even higher priority for tech help questions, access to all of my full beginner courses for every subject, and one free developer class each month after you finish the expert classes. These are the full-length courses found on my website, not just for Access too. I also teach Word, Excel, Visual Basic, and lots more. You can now become a Diamond sponsor and have your name or company name listed on a sponsors page that will be shown in each video as long as you're a sponsor. You'll get a shout out in the video and a link to your website or product in the text below the video and on my website. But don't worry, these free tech help videos are going to keep coming. As long as you keep watching them, I'll keep making more, and they'll always be free. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and post any comments you may have. I do try to read and answer all of them as soon as I can. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, which is completely free, and click on the bell icon to select all to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Make sure you click the Show More link down below the video to find additional resources and links. You'll see a list of other videos, additional information related to the current topic, free lessons, and lots more. YouTube no longer sends out email notifications when new videos are posted, so if you'd like to get an email every time I post a video, click on the link to join my mailing list. Even if you don't want to become a member, feel free to donate to my tip jar. Your patronage is greatly appreciated and will help keep these free videos coming. I got puppies to feed. Now, if you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access. It's over 4 hours long, and I just updated it for 2021. You can find it on my website or on my YouTube channel. I'll include a link below that you can click on. And also, if you like Level 1, Level 2 is just $1. Yep, that's all, $1, and it's free for all members of my YouTube channel at any level, even supporters. Want to have your question answered in a video just like this one? Visit my tech help page on my website. You can send me your question there. While you're on my site, feel free to stop by the Access Forum. Lots of good conversations happening there. Be sure to follow my blog, find me on Twitter, and of course, YouTube. Once again, my name is Richard Rost. Thank you for watching this tech help video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something today. I'll see you again soon.